Welcome to the Success is a Choice podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Beckler. And today we have Jake Kelfer on the show. And Jake is the author of Elevate Beyond and the author of Elevate Your Network. He's also, his business is the Professional Basketball Combine. So we're going to talk to him about NBA stuff, about basketball stuff, about elevating your network, and just how to be pretty much awesome and successful. So Jake, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, Jamie? Love that intro. Let's have some fun, man.
I appreciate it. So let's just jump into it. Maybe the most controversial question I will ask, and we're going to throw that out to you to start with. You're out in California. That's where you live. So I've got to talk to you about who is the best Laker ever.
Oh my goodness. We could have an hour-long conversation on the Mount Rushmore of Laker players. I'm gonna go with the lifer of Kobe, because he played every year with the Lakers. Obviously you go Magic, Kareem, or now LeBron, but I'm gonna roll with Kobe. But my favorite player is Magic.
Okay, yeah, I mean, you mentioned like just trying to figure out the best. Like that's an impossible task.
Yeah.
Let alone like even doing the Mount Rushmore, you're gonna leave off an all-time great. It's crazy. And now LeBron, taking his mercenary talents to LA, that even adds more to the mix.
Oh yeah. And I mean, you could look at it like you could build out 10 Lakers and put their second squad of 5 against any other franchise's first 5.
Yeah. Other than maybe the Celtics. The Celtics.
The Celtics. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be, the Lakers Celtics for rivalries for all these years. But yeah, they would be probably the only ones that would rival, where they have 10 legitimate icons of the sport. Yeah. So Magic, you said Magic was your favorite?
Yeah. Magic was my favorite.
So you grew up, was that obviously you're not Magic's size. You didn't quite have his stature. Is that who you wanted to be? Is that who you acted like on the playgrounds growing up? Who did you pretend that you were on the last second shot?
So my last second shot guy I was a Steve Nash. That was my comparison. Pass first point guard, could knock down the tray, was going to create, give you the pat on the back, and we were going to let it fly. We were just going to run. I was going to run the show, and we were going to make it happen.
Now, was he a Sun or was he a Maverick? At the time, was he a Dallas Maverick or was he a Phoenix Sun?
Phoenix Sun. So it's funny. I never saw Magic Johnson play live. I grew up in the 90s. So I grew up with Kobe in the championships. So Steve Nash, where I really liked to watch him, was when he was on the Suns with Amari Stoudemire. That was my favorite, when he would dribble through the lane. And this was one of my favorite moves ever, was when he would dribble down the baseline. Most guards are said, don't go down the baseline or pass it out, hit the corner guy for the 3 trailing. I'm going down the baseline like Steve Nash, come down the baseline, and then you just do a quick wraparound for the quick floater, or the quick wraparound with the behind the back dish back towards the baseline. I love that stuff. And as a guy, I'm a 5'8" guy, Jewish guy from the suburbs. I wasn't gifted with an incredible vertical jump, but what I was gifted with was an IQ of the game and a love for finding the little things that would make me able to compete at the highest level. And so I geek out on that stuff, man.
Yeah. We, as a college basketball coach, we used to teach our point guards. We would work on the floater. You can't get all the way in there for the layup, but you don't need to do necessarily a pull-up jumper, even though I'm not totally against them. But, and now once they went to, when Calipari brought the dribble drive, where it was almost like a pass, like you could pass for the dunk or just a little bit more to the right or the left, and it's a shot. Now, not that our kids were dunking. I was coaching women, but we instituted that Steve Nash, that little floater. And that was very effective for our smaller point guards.
Well, yeah. And this is something like, I compare my business and the game of basketball, like hand in hand. I think life is a game, and we've got to be the championship of our own life. Right. And when you talk about that, it is about finding ways that you can differentiate yourself with the skill set you have and with the information that you can learn. And that's the Steve Nash floater is an exact example for what people can do when they don't have the ability to dunk, when they don't have the ability to get all the way to lane, maybe draw the same type of contact that other people are going to do, right? And you have to be able to adapt. And so I've always found that incredibly fascinating, how we can learn from people and then correlate the athletic side of things to just the life side of things.
So when he was named the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, were you like, oh, Steve, no, don't do that? Or were you like, man, this is awesome. He's going to rock it.
I'm hyped for the man. I'm hyped for the guy. You know, I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to do. I'm interested to see what's going to happen now at the time of this recording. You know, they just had a blockbuster trade go through. So we'll see what's going to happen. But I mean, I've liked Steve. He's a good dude, minimal controversy. So on and off the court, he's been kind of a great guy to look up to growing up.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the business side and you mentioned, you know, skill set, talent level of players and your business, the Professional Basketball Combine. Where did that start? How did you get that idea? Like the genesis of where that is, and then we'll move on into the nuts and bolts of what you're actually doing with it and working with professional basketball players.
Sure. So let me take you back. Okay. I'm going to take you back to the beginning here. Now, my dream was to be the next Magic Johnson. I wanted to be on the Lakers. And that was, as a kid, the only thing that mattered to me. As I got older, I got to high school, played high school ball, realized that the dream of going to the NBA was going to be slim. So I said, you know what, I'm going to pursue academics, go to USC, get a good degree. And since I can't play the game anymore at the NBA level, I'm going to represent the NBA level players. And so I went to USC to be a sports agent. Now, when I graduated, unfortunately, the agency that I was going to work for, they went on a hiring freeze and couldn't bring me on board. It just so happened that I was able to finagle my way into a job with the Los Angeles Lakers. So right out of college, instead of being drafted as a player to the Lakers, I was drafted as a corporate partnerships assistant. And while I was there, I had an incredible experience, and I had a moment with Jerry West, okay, where I'm in an elevator, and part of my job was to pick all the contestants for the halftime contest, do the meet and greets for corporate partners. Like it was epic. And I'm in an elevator, and Jerry West walks in. And Jerry says to the elevator attendant, I'd like to go to the event level. I mean, it's Jerry West. He can do whatever he wants at Staples Center, right? The person working the elevator looks at Jerry and he says, well, do you have a credential? And Jerry's kind of like, no, I don't have a credential. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm Jerry West. And he said, well, if you don't have a credential, I'm going to have to ask you to step off because this gentleman pointing at me, he needs to go down to the court. He's got work to do. And I'm thinking, is this really happening, right? And Jerry is about to step off the elevator. And I'm like, I can't let this happen. So I blurt out, I go, wait. Jerry's with me. He's my guest. I'll escort him down. And the person working the elevator looks at me and he goes, are you sure? So I turn my head and I look at Jerry and I kind of like wait for the nod, and Jerry gives me the nod. So I look back at the elevator attendant and I give him the same nod and I say, yeah, he's with me. Jamie, the next 14 seconds, one of the greatest elevator rides I've ever had, okay? I'm a 22-year-old corporate partnerships assistant, bottom of the totem pole that just stood up for Jerry West, the Lakers legend, icon, right? And I'm wondering, what the heck is he about to say now? Is he about to be so pissed off that I just had to stand up for him in Staples Center? We get out of the elevator. And right as we're about to go our separate ways, he sticks out his hand. He says, thank you. I appreciate what you just did. And it was in that moment, and now looking back on it, that created what I call the feeling of elevation. And it made me realize that at the end of the day, whether we're a coach, a high performer, an educator, an entrepreneur, we're all just people. And we all want to be loved, to be heard, to be valued, to be complimented, to feel that we matter. And Jerry West made me feel like I mattered in that moment. That was when I realized I needed to do something to help more and more people. It reaffirmed that I wanted to work with athletes in a way that wasn't just about making a quick buck off them or going behind someone's back to get a client. It was to genuinely help these athletes achieve their dream of playing professional basketball. Fast forward a year and a half. I had just written my first book. Kobe retired. I retired. I launched my book. I'm speaking all over, working with educators, working with students. And I'm like, how do I get back into the game? Like basketball is pulling me back. And I thought back to the Jerry moment. How do I elevate these athletes? And that's when the idea of, well, what if we put on a second combine to help the guys that aren't in every national media outlet, maybe guys that were top 100 recruits, but then kind of fizzled out because they went to a Duke, a Kentucky, a Louisville, wherever. Or maybe they're going to a small school like Mount St. Mary's or a D2 school and they're dominating, but they don't have the love. What if we created an event for them? And that's how the Professional Basketball Combine was born.
Great story. I want to go back to you. That's one of the all-time best elevator pitches I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's great.
The logo is with me. He's with me. He's my guest. Logo.
Yeah.
You see that? I don't know if you had any logos, NBA logos in the elevator.
See my shirt? You see my shirt, my credential? Yeah, that's him.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Now, did he know who you were?
He had no idea who I was. And I don't even know if he would know who I am today. And I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of the story, because here you have the legend who lives up to the expectation, lives up to the hype of being a genuinely great human being. And here you have on the other side, a 22-year-old that is heart's beating out of his chest, panicking, armpits are sweating, wondering, holy shit, what did I just get myself into? And the result of that, when he shook my hand, it kind of just was like, this is an amazing moment that I'm never going to forget. And I haven't. And I will tell this story to my kids and forever, as long as he uses the logo and beyond that. And it's going to be amazing. And it's been amazing because so many people have been able to relate to that experience of feeling like they matter. And it just so happens that Jerry West was the one that gave me that extra push to continue it on.
Man, and you know how many people, celebrities, or even how many of us who really aren't even important, but think we're important, would have pulled the "don't you know who I am" card and been like, I'm going to have your job, and I'm going to, you're going to regret this, essentially, and from all that I know about Jerry West, it would seem like he would not be the kind of guy that would do that.
Well, and that's exactly right. Like it's an ego thing at that point. Most of us are going to be like, wait, you don't know who I am? Like even if you're going to a speaking engagement, or a coach walks in for a game and you're in a big playoff game, right? Or you're in an NCAA tournament game and you're like, you should know who I am. I'm the head coach of this team. Like, you should know who I am. And naturally, we're going to drive to our own ego and protect ourselves. But in that moment, he kind of was just in the moment, going with the flow. And he realized, like, you know what? There's other things going on in the world. It's not all about me. And I think that you bring up a great point about that, because there are a lot of people that would have said, well, you should know who I am. And you could cause a fit, because he could have easily said, don't you know who I am? And he could have been like, no. And he could be like, well, call your supervisor, because you're going to want to know. Right. Like, and that wouldn't even been like that crazy for him to do. So I like how you bring that up.
Yeah. And you said something else that was very interesting. You said that Kobe retired and then you retired. I like how it was a package deal. I didn't realize that. I missed that on the ESPN ticker, that it was kind of a package deal. I missed that, but I'm glad you reminded me of that.
Yeah. Well, so the jersey hasn't been retired yet in the rafters, but it's coming. And look, here's the funny thing. I said at the beginning, like, I love making the game, like life is a game to me. Now, I was writing my first book, and I was kind of thinking, like, when do I launch this thing? I had no book writing experience. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was a 22-year-old kid that wanted to put a book out in the world and change the world. Like, that was the dream, right? Well, the Lakers sucked in his last season. We knew he wasn't making the playoffs. So while it was the greatest experience, I knew, okay, he's going to retire at the end of April. April 13th is his final game, no matter what happens, even if he goes for 60 and leads a great comeback to just Kobe his career, right? And I'm like, okay, so I'm retiring at the end of April too. And the book, I launched my book May 1st. And that's like, if we can make life and these little moments, we make them fun and put meaning behind them, we can start to have a lot of great days and a lot of great experiences. And if we can have a lot of great days and experiences, we're going to have a great life. And we have a great life, we're going to become a champion. And that's what we all want, is to be the champion of our own life with freedom and happiness and fulfillment.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Let's go back to your professional basketball combine.
Yep.
Love the idea. It's great. Giving people hopes, giving people dreams, helping people, to fulfill their dreams. And certainly not every player that comes through your camp, your combine for those 2 days makes it to the league. Certainly. But as you look at guys that come to your combine, what's kind of that, it's overused, but the X factor, what are those things that you see? Like, can you identify guys that may just have it, that might be, they're not the Duke kid, they're not the Kentucky kid, the first rounder, but they might make it.
So you got to think about it this way too, for these players. Okay. These aren't your first pick of the draft, your 20th pick of the draft. Typically, these are guys that are fighting for everything they got. So when you're looking at these players, it's like, can they get drafted and be one of the last guys on the bench? Can they make a summer league roster, or can they be a two-way player that's going to lead the G League and then potentially grow into a role player off the bench? So when you think about it from that framework, it's a little bit different of an expectation, but the X factors, I think, remain the same for everything. One of them is you have to be coachable. If you aren't coachable and you can't not only be coachable, but implementing what you're being told to do in a swift and speedy and accurate manner, you won't make it. You have to be coachable. You have to be willing to hear feedback, and you have to be willing to implement that as soon as possible. That, I think, is a huge thing. Number two is I think you have to be a great listener. I think you have to be a great listener and ask great questions. A lot of players are scared to ask questions or speak up because they're scared of looking dumb or looking like they don't have the answers. But in reality, what you have to do is be vulnerable enough to know what you don't know so you can become perfection at what it is that you're trying to run, or the play, or the expectation, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I think another big thing that I've really seen is that there are players, and you know Alan Stein Jr., right?
Yeah.
And he always talks about the fundamentals. Well, I think that is such an important piece, because when you see guys coming into the gym an hour and a half early and they're warming up, they're stretching, they're taking care of their body, they're making friends with the water people, they're making friends with the strength trainers. That's a different type of person than the person that strolls in and just puts their shoes on and can play. Not to say one's necessarily better than the other, but when I'm looking for the 15th guy on my roster who's going to be a team guy, who's going to be a leader, who's going to be able to be there for my team, I'm looking for the guy that shows up and brings everybody up, not the guy that can just put up 35 a night, but is going to bring the overall atmosphere down because he's egocentric. So I think those are some key commonalities that help differentiate players from our event that have really gone on to succeed, as well as from players that maybe were expected to do great, but their egos got in the way, and then, they didn't have it.
Well, I was working a couple of years ago with a player that was at a Power 5 school. He was a first-team all-conference kid, scored a lot of points. I mean, if I mentioned his name, people would know. Well, he ended up going undrafted. And as I watched him and talked with him and his family during summer league and stuff, I came to a realization that I never really came to before in all my years of sports, is that some of these guys, whether it's good or bad necessarily, they've never had to sit during a game unless it was a blowout or they were hurt or in foul trouble. They don't know how to handle a timeout when they're not playing. They don't know how to be whose best friend is the water cooler and the athletic trainer. They've never experienced that. The only fighting or competition they've had is if they're going to be the first scorer or the second scorer, essentially. And you get a lot of these guys, and, we see it all the time in the NBA. Well, why isn't this guy in the NBA? And why is this guy? This guy's sorry. Well, but you brought it up. They know how to play a role. They know what to do, how to be a 15th man, how to cheer for others, and how to be a good teammate. And that's an important thing. And I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. I mean, look, let's give a perfect example here. Quinn Cook is a perfect example of a guy. Everybody loves Quinn Cook. I've never heard someone talk bad about this dude ever. Is he the best player? Is he the tallest guard? Is he the fastest guard? Is he the best defender? Is he the best shooter? No, I don't think he's overly unbelievable at really anything on the court compared to a lot of the talent that exists in the world. But he does a lot of things right, and people love when he's on their team. That, to me, is a guy that will always have a spot on my roster. And he's proven to be part of winning teams. He's proven to be in connection with the best players in the league because they like him. And that's what we have to do. Think about Caruso. I'm just going Lakers here while we're on the roll here. Yeah. But like Caruso is another great guy. Skill-wise, good skill-wise. He hustles, and it appears that LeBron trusts him. That guy's going to have a spot on the team. He's going to get minutes. There are always going to be ways for you, for anybody, not you specifically, but for you as a player, as an athlete, as an individual, to figure out how can you make the team better. And this is what I really call, when you dive deep into this, this is what we call the we mentality versus the me mentality. Now, the we mentality are people that are focused on what can we do for each other? How can I help you get to where you want to go? How can we climb this mountain together because we're doing something greater than just ourselves? The me mentality person is, what can you do for me? How can I use you to get to where I want to go? The me mentality person is the one. And this was the hardest lesson because I thought I had a we mentality, but I was still overcoming my me mentality. Here's the hardest lesson. And we all felt this at some point. You're competing with somebody for a job, for a roster spot, for a role, and they get that spot, they get that job, they get that role. Your first inclination is not congratulations. It's I'm pissed and I'm jealous. And that is the difference. When you fully switch over from a me to a we, that's the big difference that I've noticed, because then you're genuinely rooting for everyone's success. Because at the end of the day in life, we can all win at this game. Everybody can win. And so I love that separation, that distinguishing, be able to distinguish between those two things.
Or when I'm sitting next to my best friend, who's the water cooler, and on the other side is the athletic trainer, my other best friend, I'm hoping that the kid out there that plays in front of me has a turnover and coach gets really mad or tweaks their ankle, not so they're really hurt, but just so I get to go in the game.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah, that would be a we versus me mentality. You're not thinking about the team. Or when a kid will come into you as a coach, how can I play more minutes? How can I get more minutes? Wrong question. How can I help the team? Hey, coach, how can I help the team better? Maybe it results in more minutes. Maybe it doesn't. But yeah, you're right. We versus me. If you are a coach or an athletic director, there's no question that you care about your student athletes and their development. The Leadership Playbook is a program that can help your athletes become better teammates and more positive leaders, just 2 minutes at a time. There are hundreds of short video lessons that can be viewed by your athletes on their phones or tablets. To find out more about how you can build a stronger culture, please visit theleadershipplaybook.com. In fact, you are going to get $100 off the price just for being a listener. If you're listening to this episode, use coupon code SUCCESS at checkout and save yourself $100. If you're a coach of a team or an athletic director, this is one of the best deals you are going to get all year long to help out your program. Once again, that address is theleadershipplaybook.com, and be sure to use coupon code SUCCESS. And now let's get back to this insightful conversation. So you're dealing with these guys. They have aspirations of being a professional basketball player, and most of them end up going to play professional somewhere. I would imagine, whether it's overseas, the G League, so just because you don't make the NBA, there's still money to be had. There's still a career to be had. Walk us through kind of we all know the NBA. Walk us through a little bit like the G League and overseas. Give us some stuff or some ideas or insights that maybe the average fan doesn't really know about that kind of professional basketball.
Where to begin? Keeping it simple is, in overseas basketball, there are so many places around the world where you can make a living playing basketball. Some leagues are better than others. Some leagues pay more than others. Some leagues have a better opportunity to start and then get back to the NBA. Some places are more comparable to NBA style of game, but overseas, there is a huge world of opportunity for people to get exposure, paid, and to be able to eventually, show that they're good enough to come back to the States to play. The G League is the closest opportunity you have to being called up to the NBA. But you get paid minimally compared to other locations. And so one of the things that's always a dance is, do I play in the G League and make $35,000? Or do I maybe go overseas and get paid $80,000? If I'm overseas, it's hard to be called from the NBA and say, hey, I'm going to get to play, right? But in the G League, you could get called up on a 10-day and you make $82,000 in 10-day or whatever the minimum is for that year, or whatever it might be. Or you can get your contract bumped up to a two-way deal at some point, which then gives you an opportunity to have $275K coming in the bank. So there's a few differences there. But the G League is the NBA farm system, right? It's the NBA affiliations, and a lot of great players play in the G League. A lot of great players play overseas. A lot of it depends on some of these athletes' personal situations, their family situations. And I think this is something that is really important, because some of these athletes, you're like, dude, you should stay in college a year. But maybe they need to take care of their mom. And if they get to the G League, they might get a two-way deal. And that might be $200,000 that they didn't have. That could save their family. There's always going to be a scenario that we don't know about. And so it's always great to be educated, and it's always great to be able to give people the best guidance so that they can make the best choice for themselves.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the money, there's some ridiculous money overseas.
Oh yeah.
And that is a difficult decision that people have to make. And it's you really can't fault a kid either way. Do you pursue your dream in the G League, which is easier to get to the NBA from there, or do you take the money? And that's rough. It's a tough decision. We have, where I'm at, we have the Canton Charge nearby, and I go to a lot of their games. I know their coaching staff, and I get to see a lot of players come through there, and it's amazing. There will be some name brand players that come through there, and some of them, it's funny to watch too, because they're trying to gun it. They're gunning it. They're trying to score. And it's like, I'm not sure that's going to, that might impress for a short term, but I also see some of these guys that are just working their tail off, and they make the league. They make the league eventually, because they're doing all those little things to be the 15th guy.
And that's we could go down a rabbit hole here, because when you think about this, the G League, sure, you could, if you score 30 a game in the G League, that's great. We know that you're a scorer, right? But that's not going to be your role when you get to the league. It's very unlikely that you're going to go from the G League scoring 30 a game to then being the number one scorer and a top 5 scorer in the league on an NBA team. Now you could, and you could be great. And there's been a lot of unbelievably successful G League players who have done unbelievably well in the NBA. But a lot of the NBA guys want to see, can you fit a specific role? Because then sometimes you'll even see, how did this guy get called up? He's averaging like 8 and 8. But it's because he fits the role, and he fits the need of the team at that very moment, based on injury, based on need, based on playoff requirements, or whatever it may be. So that's a great point as well.
And what you said, though, exactly what you said, is transferable. We got a lot of college coaches, high school coaches listening, or even parents of kids that are playing. This isn't just a G League NBA thing that people can't relate to. What you just said is completely transferable at the college level and the high school level. How can you make yourself valuable? And it's not about getting up the shots. It's not even about, I was the leading scorer. I mean, I'll tell teams all the time and players all the time, every single team in America has a leading scorer. Yeah. Every team in America has 5 starters. The bad teams have a leading scorer. So what? How are you making yourself valuable to be on a good team and be a valuable member of that team? And so that's transferable at every level.
100%. I think we're seeing that being great at a role is just as valuable as being a stat box filler. We're seeing that if you can execute your role to the highest level, people will make a space for you, and people will and you'll continue to turn heads until you get to the top, or until you can't fill that role at the highest level anymore. We're seeing that over and over again as we go into more. And I think one of the biggest things, though, and I'm going to go into a little bit of something extra here, is I think one of the biggest things that parents or that coaches can do for their players is not only guide them towards that role and help them develop into that player, but it's to let them know that they care about their players. I think that is one of the most underrated things that a coach or a parent can do for their kids and their players, is to support them, to believe in them, and to tell them when they need to step into a certain role. Because when a player feels that their coach truly supports them, they will do anything for that coach, which often results in them achieving great success. If the coach is good, that's what happens. And so I had to just throw that on top of that as well.
I appreciate that. You do a lot. I mean, you've had a couple books. You work with guys aspiring to get to the highest level. One of your books, Elevate Your Network. How can people network or take their game of life or their game of business or whatever it is. There's a lot of transferable crossovers in the game of business, the game of basketball, whatever it is. What are some things that we can take away from how we relate to people, how we deal with people, what our relationships are, or our interviewing skills, or just some things that maybe you see that come to mind right away that are crossovers, that if we can do this in life, we're going to be able to do it in basketball. Or if we do it in basketball, we're going to be able to do it in business as well, because you deal with basketball, you're an entrepreneur, you got a lot of things going on.
One of the biggest things, and we've talked about a few of them already, we woven throughout today. The we is greater than me. That's a transferable thing. Being a great listener is one of the things. I mean, these are some things that come straight from the book that are applicable. But another really big thing that everybody can hear is you have to own who you are. It's not important to be what you think somebody else wants. It's important to be who you are and to own that. Because when we're talking about athletes, you don't need all 30 NBA teams to love you. You don't need all 30 NBA teams to like you. You need one NBA team to be head over heels about you, and you're a millionaire, or you're a draft pick, or you're signed. The same thing goes in our life. When we own who we are and we play our game, when we stay in our lane and we become the best version of that, then we have the right people love us. Not everybody will like us, though, and that's okay. And so there's a lot of people. They listen to me and they're like, Jake, you have way too much energy and you talk way too fast. Dude, chill. And I say, with all due respect, if I'm not your cup of tea, go somewhere else. Like, you know what I mean? Like if this doesn't resonate with you, there's somebody else that will be better for you. And I want you to find them, because that's who you need to listen to right now. But if you love the energy and the speed talking and just the hand gestures and the spitting in my microphone, like if you like all that, right? Like then I'm your guy and I'll take you to the top. Be that person, right? Be that person. So that's one thing. Second thing here is you never know who you're talking to until you know who you're talking to. This is a classic example, okay, of everything. And I can tell you tons of stories on this, but very simply put, never assume you know who someone is, or never assume what somebody is capable of until you actually know who they are. Meaning, just when you go to the gym, you may not love the sixth guy coming out, the sixth man, but that sixth man, you know who their parent might be? The one that's going to recruit you for the college that you want to go to. You know who the kid sitting next to you is? Well, maybe his mom is the lawyer at the law firm you want to get a job at. Maybe the person that you are talking to at the conference knows your favorite author. I'll give you a story about this. I'm working on my third book. 3 years ago when I started the Combine, or in 2017 when we started the Combine, there was a guy by the name of Coach RJ Barsh. He was a coach at a school in Florida. Are you familiar with Coach Barsh?
Yeah, he was on our podcast.
Okay.
Yep.
Coach Barsh hits me up. And he's like, hey, man, if you need any help, I'm local. We were hosting at IMG Academy in Florida. And I was like, dude, you're in. Like, let's roll. Like, let's go. I was so pumped. And we built an incredible relationship. I didn't know who he knew or what he knew or anything. We continued to get to know each other over the years. Well, my favorite author is John Gordon. The first book I ever read after How to Win Friends and Influence People was Training Camp by John Gordon. I'm working on my third book, and it's an interview-based book. Well, John Gordon, I just interviewed him for my book, and it was Coach RJ Barsh who made that introduction to make this happen. You never know who will come across you or how you or when they will come across you, but you have to give people a chance. So those are some of the big tips right there.
No, that's a great point. And I've seen that in like job searches or networking or things like that, where somebody becomes an athletic director, but you didn't think much of them because they were an assistant athletic trainer, or they were the facilities person at a school 10 years previously that you were at. And then all of a sudden you want a job from them, but you didn't treat them well because they were nobody. They were nothing, They
were beneath you. They were beneath you, right?
Yeah. Because we all want to, our network, we want to have Coach K and John Calipari and Tom Izzo. That's who we want. Nobody or very few people think about, well, how about the manager at Michigan State, or the GA at Kentucky, or the assistant athletic director at this school? But you never know You never know. But you mentioned How to Win Friends, Influence People. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Is there a story or something from that book that you remember, or that really resonated with you and you still remember that?
One of the things that I quote it very often is, you can make more friends in, let me see if I can get this quote right. You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in others than you can in 2 years by trying to get people interested in you. And this is everything. When we give to others, when we focus on helping others, when we show genuine interest, when we ask authentic questions, when we show up for other people, everything flows our way. Rather than saying, hey, look at me. Look at me, I'm great. Look how good look how many points I scored. Look how many championships I've won. No one cares. Care about other people, and those people will spread that word and that message, and your reputation will build. Second thing that I remember and that I use a lot is, the sound of your own name is the sweetest sound in the dictionary, or the sound of your own name is like the sweetest sound to an individual, something like that. And this is so true. And when we meet people, more often than not, we shake someone's hand and we forget their name. The reason is because we're so focused on what we're going to say next that we don't even spend a second listening to what that person has to say about their name. If you can remember somebody's name, and at the end of that conversation, when they're walking away and you say, see you, Jamie, you're like, whoa, they remembered my name. That's cool. And then you're going to think about, okay, this person is someone I want to continue to connect with. Or if someone sees you on the street and you met with them once and you wave at them, and you're like, Jamie, what's up? And then you're going to be like, wait, who are you? And now you're almost going to feel guilty that you don't remember their name or their person. That creates a whole different relationship dynamic. And we don't have time to go into what all this stuff means. But if you can put an intentional effort behind making an effort of remembering somebody's name, it will go a long, long way, especially as you continue to go in different areas of your life.
Well, we mentioned RJ Barsh earlier, and he called you on your website. He says you are the Steph Curry of speaking. You are unstoppable. The Steph Curry, that's huge to live up to. That's big time. Like when I get introduced as a motivational speaker, I'm scared because now I got to motivate. Or if someone, hey, this person's a comedian. All right, be funny, funny guy.
Yeah.
But you are the Steph Curry of speaking. When you get on stage, okay, when you speak to an audience or you get on stage, do you have a go-to? You have a go-to, I'm sure you mentioned the Jerry West story, but do you have a go-to story, or do you have a go-to topic that you just absolutely love, or a go-to joke? Tell us a joke, funny man.
I mean, I got them all, but we might have to save that for when we get back on stage.
When you actually can travel.
Yeah, but one of the things that I do love to do when I can is I'm introduced as if I'm getting introduced for a starting lineup. So I will always finish my intros standing 5'8", coming from the back of the room. And then I'll run in with loud music and I start hyping people out, high-fiving. I want everyone's energy to match mine. And I want to match theirs. So that's something that I do. Again, make it a game, have some fun with it. But the Coach RJ Barsh comment is one of the most humbling things ever. But it is exciting because now I got to be able to create my own shot off the dribble and perform at a highest level that anyone's ever seen. So I'm coming into every speaking engagement fully prepared, hyped up, full of energy, stories, a couple jokes. I got an unbelievable eyebrow joke because I have huge eyebrows and bushy eyebrows. It gets people going every time. I got a great story, the Jerry West story. I got a couple other stories that I like to pull out and kind of switch out depending on the audience and the feel. But I'm big into engagement. I love getting people, high-fiving, moving and grooving, getting people embarrassed a little bit, but also like showing them what does. Got a couple exercises that I bring people into. So I like to have some fun up there.
That's awesome. Now, would that be on your website if he had said you were the Seth Curry of speaking?
So I mean, I would still take that as like a really high level compliment, but the people who need to see that wouldn't know who Seth Curry is. They would think there's a typo. They would think there's a typo, which would be fine, I guess. Or they would be like, who's Seth Curry? Like, I don't understand this. Are you even that? Like, so what does that mean? Are you good? Like, but
Seth Curry, he must be really good. He must be like a motivational speaker too.
Yeah. Seth Curry, man, this guy's was he like 80? He's had a 50-year career, like legend. But yeah, no, that is funny.
Well, I like that. I like the intro. I like the coming in, like you're being introduced. That's awesome. Well, you mentioned name. Name is a big deal. People can find you on Twitter at Jake Kelfer. Where else can they find you? What's the best way to follow you and see what all you got going on?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram the most. I'm spending the most time on Instagram right now at Jake Kelfer. You can also check out my website, jakekelfer.com. I'm doing virtual speeches right now until we can do in-person events for schools, organizations, teams, things like that. And if you go to my Instagram or on my website, anyone who's listening, you can grab a free copy of my book, Elevate Your Network. We bought a bunch of copies. All you got to do is cover the shipping cost, and we'll send it out to you anywhere in America.
That sounds great. That's a great deal. That's a great deal. Highly recommend that. Jump on that. Yeah, you can't beat that with a stick. So that's good job. So Jake, we appreciate that. Appreciate that offer. JakeKelfer.com. Check him out, but we'll put all that stuff in the show notes as well. So thanks so much for joining us tonight, Jay.
Man, thanks so much for having me. This was a blast.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast today. You know, we have some excellent guests lined up in the coming weeks to help add value to your life, to help you maximize your success and reach your potential. We want to make sure that you don't miss a thing. So please take just a quick second to click that little subscribe button so you can get all the great upcoming episodes. Thanks so much. And until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?